What's up, everybody? It's another episode of Underrated with myself, Justin Rob Doyle. How you been? It's been a little bit, couple months since I've put out an episode. I appreciate you jumping in for this one. But yeah, just a little update. I've been on parental leave these last couple months, and I'm fortunate enough to work for a company that offers that, and I've been kind of taking full advantage of it, taking two kids just right to the face. Just for the entire time. And it's awesome. It's a lot of work, but it has not allowed me to step away and make some content until now. My wife is now taking them both to the face while I record this. So thank you to her. Yeah, it's been 2 months since I've created actual video content, but I want you to know, if anybody who knows me knows I just can't sit still and I just have to be creating something anyway. So there's some bucket list things that I've always just kind of been sitting there. I've always wanted to create like a board game just for funsies. And I've always really liked the game Stratego, but thought it could be bigger and more grandiose. And I really just took that to the next level. It literally is right here. I've been printing things. There's cards. There's little token things. I've basically commandeered Stratego pieces and turned them into my board game pieces now. So there's a full-fledged board game that I've actually admittedly forced my friends to play. I don't expect this to be on retail shelves, but I'm going to check it off my bucket list. I've created a freaking board game. That's pretty sweet. If you want to know more about that, I guess drop in the comment that you want to know or reach out to me personally. I will be happy to dump all of this on you. I'm excited to talk about it. It's super fun and totally random. Completely random. Who knows? Maybe I'll make a video about it in the future. I don't know. We'll see. But enough about that. Let's shift our focus to the actual purpose of this podcast. Sal Capaccio has taken some time out of his life to join me on this podcast, and I appreciate him so much for that. This is my former high school teacher, turned Buffalo Bills sideline reporter, beat reporter, just all-around dream chaser, and honestly an inspiration and a role model to me from afar to watch this man succeed. I'm so proud of this guy, and I'm so happy to have him on the podcast today. Yeah, just enjoy it. I'm gonna get out of the way. I'm gonna move. I'm literally gonna slide out of the screen, and we're gonna get just go. Sal Capaccio. Everything else is good, I think. I don't know. How's my hair? Is it cute? I haven't really touched it.
Mine? Oh, mine.
Yeah, it's beautiful and well kept. You looked the same you looked 15 years ago.
I know, right? That's the beauty of being bald sometimes. Well, a little more salt with the pepper, but that's about it.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that, because this is why not? We're going all over the place. When did you commit to just going full bald? I mean, that's obviously a tough choice for a lot of men out there, and you've been rocking it for years.
So, funny story about that, actually. I know the exact moment that happened. I was 26 years old. I was playing in a flag football league in Englewood, Florida. Love to play flag football. I still play. I'm going to be 52 tomorrow, actually, from recording this. Tomorrow's my birthday, and I'll be 52.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I was 26, and I was in a flag football league, and there were a lot of really high-level former college players in the league, guys that played at Clemson or Florida State. And so the local newspaper came to do a story on all these, this league is pretty competitive, really good athletes. And they happen to put a picture in the paper, and it's me running. It's the back of me, and there's a bald spot on my head.
Uh-oh.
Right. And I was bartending at a place, because you lived there, the End Zone in Englewood, Florida. And I went into bartend the next day or two, and all the people around the bar were looking at the picture and laughing at me. Look at that bald spot. You're not even 30 years old. And the next day I shaved my head. And it has been, so now, because I will be 52 years old on April 4th, literally half my life, I've been shaving my head 2 to 3 times a week. And I shave it kind of based on what my schedule is. Do I have TV appearance today? Do I have one on Sunday? Let me wait. Bills game, everything. I kind of have to, but now my mom got me one of those ones that you put and you kind of it rolls it really nice on your head. I can't remember.
Yeah, I've seen the ones at the store that look like half a Hot Wheel car and a razor blade. Yeah.
And Reed Ferguson, the Bills long snapper, uses one and endorses one. It's just same thing. I'm like, Reed, look what I got. And I love it. So I can do it every day and just kind of keep it fresh if I want, but I kind of forget I have it sometimes. And a few days go by, I'm like, oh, I got to shave my head, and I do it back with the razor.
So if you did let it go for a little bit, what would we talking? Like, would it try to do the full head, or what's going on up there?
So I grew up with really naturally bushy curly hair.
Oh, nice.
Okay. And back then, that's 70s, early 80s, growing up, early 80s into the late 80s, and would go to get a haircut, but nobody wanted to touch my hair. The curls are so nice. You don't want to touch the hair, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of like great hair like you have, but
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, but right around middle school. It's like, I started discovering girls and like, I can't have this bushy hairdo. And it wasn't the thing anymore. That was something from the 70s. This is 1990 now, and my uncle was a barber and I'm like, Uncle Tony, you need to shave it off. So I did the fade. Remember like Kid and Play of the fade, right? So I did the fade. And then I was in high school football and my high school's name is Cleveland Hill. And we all shaved our numbers in our head. I was 80 and I put CH for Cleveland, CH for Cleve Hill. So I would have that. But as I got older, I started also recede the hairline. So it made sense that I had a tighter haircut, but now I was losing it on top. Well, fast forward to today, if that were to happen, I would pretty much have a horseshoe. This would not fill in.
Okay.
I mean, I would look like I'm in my 70s probably.
Yeah.
My dad, I will say my dad died at a young age. He was only 48, but he looked like he was in his 70s because of the haircut and the hair losing it and having the horseshoe basically in gray hair.
Yeah, well, that's incredibly tough because I'm thankful. It's a thick head of hair. I get a compliment every time I get a haircut. They're like, "Hey, this is nice," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's pretty solid." I look at people like you that have had their hair shaved bald like that, and I think it looks great. I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, it would never work. I just don't think it would work. I see my scalp. It looks.
I think weird. A lot of people say that, but then you do it and it looks way better than you think. You know what I mean? Now, some people certainly don't have quite the shape for it. I have a nice round head, I think, right? But I don't know. I think people who tell me that, I have a buddy who's in TV up here who same thing. He just had it. It was always, it's balding and he was young. And I'm like, dude, just shave it off. He's like, no, I don't know. And he did. And he's so much happier now that he's done it.
I think, I listen, this is obviously what the people came for when they clicked this podcast is they wanted to hear about us talk about our hair or lack of hair for 10 minutes straight. But I do think that if the time came where I was losing it and it became like, okay, there's a huge spot in the back of my head gone, I think I'd just cut it. I think I wouldn't hold it. I think I would be pretty dead set. I'd be like, let's just get rid of it and see what happens. My wife probably wouldn't like it, but we'll see.
Well, listen, I will tell you though, this is the kindergarten picture.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Hair, right?
Very nice. Oh my God. I love that. Wait, I love the reflection of the face of the background.
I know,
that needs to come back.
Look at the hair. Look at that. This is like second grade, third grade.
What happened? What happened? That's beautiful.
And then hold on. These are high school pictures. See how the hair got changed?
Oh, baby. Okay.
See the receding hairline here?
Yeah, it's that helmet. You put the helmet on too many times.
And then finally, like literally, this is me and my mom. I was one of the athletes of the year in my school, and that's me with that kind of haircut. You can see it's starting to go already.
Okay. You made the right call, man. I got to tell you. And you have that timeless look, man. Like I said, like we go way back, obviously. You were my teacher in high school, and you don't look like you've aged at all. And I mean that. Like, it's insane.
I appreciate it.
It's
and awesome. Then I would say, though, that I really did not get any gray hair into the goatee until maybe about 7-8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago now, but something like that. It was always kind of dark, and then I'm like, whoop, it kind of showed up.
I like that, though. That's there's a market for that. That's the touch of gray, man. That's the good stuff. People pay money for that. All right, so let's shift back because I know there's a lot we can talk about, and we only have a little bit of time, and I appreciate you making the time. But you did mention you did bartend in Inglewood, right? There's one thing that I know about people at a bar, and every time I'll jump in on the conversation, but they love talking sports when they're in there doing their sports bar thing. What are the conversations like? Let's compare the conversations to the people in a sports bar compared to the people who call into the radio show. Who's got the better takes there, or what have you heard?
I don't know if anybody have better takes. I think the difference might be because you have to remember here I'm in Buffalo, New York, very Buffalo centric sports, right? If you're going to call in my radio show, it's pretty much because we're talking Bills or Sabres. There could be other things, there's no doubt, but that's generally it. When you go and you live in a place like Englewood, Florida, which is south of Sarasota, in case your listeners and viewers don't know, it's pretty like it's an area where you have a lot of transplants from a lot of places, right? So you have Buccaneers fans and Dolphins fans and Bills fans and Browns and Steelers and all that. And then you have different sports and all these different teams. So I think that it's much more generalized, but if you want to talk about specific teams, that's fine. But I think that's where it changes. I do think though that the similarity is it's pretty tertiary, right? It's like pretty general. And it's basically most people who call radio stations and most people who go to a sports bar and talk with the bartender about sports kind of think that they could just run a team and know the answers. And this is what I would do. And why don't they need to do that? Okay, that's great. But that's what we do as fans, right? That's why we play fantasy football, because we like to be the GM and make all the decisions. But in reality, being as close to the Bills as I am as the sideline reporter and, on the beat every day and getting to know people in the organization, how things work, you can't just do those things, that you want to do and say that it's easy to do and just, we're going through that now, right? For example, like, okay, well, James Cook is saying he wants $15 million and it's kind of causing a little contention here. And, we get people like, well, I would just give him $10 million. And well, you can't just do that. He has to sign the contract. If he wants 15, he's going to say, I don't want 10. You can't just give him, he can't accept just what you want to give him, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that there's a lot of people, especially with fantasy football, that are in that mindset. It's almost, I love fantasy football, huge advocate. I think it's awesome. And especially growing up, Madden, I would run a franchise mode by myself for 50 years in every game that I played when I was a kid, because my favorite thing was to draft a team, draft player. Like, I loved running a team. And in my head, there was a moment where I legitimately, even for NBA, there were, I think, programs, and there still are to this day, where you can get like scout training, GM training, like almost similar trainings like that. And I don't know I don't know what the next steps are after something like that, but I'm sure it feels really cool to be close to it and be able to kind of communicate with people who have lived those lives, and just see if you're even cut out for something like that. I don't know what that looks like, the path to get to those positions. It seems interesting.
I had a really interesting talk with Sean McDermott, the Bills head coach, last year about this, actually. And obviously he's in the coaching side, not in the executive side. But, I was a football coach at the high school where, we were and you were, and I was a teacher and football coach. There was a point in my life, Justin, where I wanted to be a college football coach. Like, I thought that was my path. I had been in radio. I had left radio to go into teaching and coaching. And then I went back into radio to Buffalo. But I have friends who are college coaches. I have friends at professional level. At one time in my life, I thought I want to be a college coach. And then I saw friends who were living in, 5 different cities over 3 different years around the country. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I mean, it just that's not the life I want to lead. But I think from this standpoint of what I talked to Sean McDermott about, and I said this to him, I said, Sean, I couldn't do what you do. I said, your industry, all it is people MFing each other all the way up the totem pole and backstabbing and trying to do whatever they can. Now there is loyalty in the business and there are friendships in the business. Of course there are, but holy cow, Justin. I mean, this is really, I said, Sean, it's Game of Thrones is what it is to get to where you want to get to. And it doesn't mean I'm saying he is. I don't mean I'm saying it specifically. Yeah. Anybody is specifically, but it really is that I don't want to live that life. There's competition in my industry. There's competition right here every day in my own backyard with, people and reporting and all that. But, we're also in one of the smaller markets in the league. We're not New York or Chicago or LA. And I enjoy, we have great relationships with the colleagues that I have. I go on their TV shows. I go on my radio show. We're all competitors, but we're friends. It's not like we're a little unique in Buffalo versus a lot of other markets, but I couldn't do that. I couldn't be in what you just described, like what it takes to get to those steps where these people are. That's a lot of it. Like all the things, all the people that you have to kind of navigate and push away that are trying to do what you're trying to do in the competition.
100% feel that in my head. Like I said, it seems so accessible to especially every kid that's ever played a Madden game that they could just, hey, this is something I want to do. Let's try it. But when you're dealing with actual human livelihoods, like I couldn't imagine being A, to manipulate your way to get into those positions, and then B, making the tough choices of making cuts for a player. Like I see, all the shows out there of just the behind the scenes clips that you see of these players getting cut. It's like, that's brutal, man. That would weigh on me, I think, a little too much. You got to be a different breed, I think, to be able to handle making those decisions.
Yeah, I think so too. And, Brandon Beane, the Bills GM, spoke about this to us recently, which is, he said, he has, in fact, he was on the podcast with Ryan Fitzpatrick and Andrew Whitworth. And Fitz is a friend of mine. I know him. I just saw him at the owners meetings the other day, just name dropping here a little bit, but, and I told him how much I really loved that podcast with Brandon, because Brandon was opening up about this, and it's actually really good. If you want to go listen, you should, because he talks exactly about what you just asked me from that side of things. You're getting it from a GM. And one thing he said in there was, he has been around other executives who it's very emotionless. It's a business. You can't have that relationship with players because you have to make those decisions. And you totally respect that, because that's one way to go. He's not like that. He has a great relationship with Josh Allen. And yes, there comes a time where he has to be the GM and Josh Allen has to be the player with an agent, but they also have a very, very tight, close relationship. So he said he wants to have that. That's the way he wants to operate, because he believes in the end, having those relationships with the players and building that culture is important to what the Bills do. But that doesn't mean they're the only way to do it, obviously.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but being a market like Buffalo or like, Green Bay or these smaller markets that are kind of they're not sexy towns, you can't really fall back as a GM on players will come here, right? Like they're not going to come here. So you do kind of have to do that homegrown approach, and I respect that. That's how I would like to do it if I was in that role. And again, this is never going to happen, but it's fun to talk about. It's definitely something fun to talk about.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, if you want to get into the real side of things too, and say it's never going to happen, I mean, maybe not. If people want to have that entry point, the scouting part is important, and coming up as a scout. And Brandon Beane was a scout on one side. He was in marketing at one point. Like, there's all these different things you have to balance and know about.
Yeah, and there's one of my favorite things is, and this would probably be my path to a coaching role or like a scouting role is Eric Spoelstra of the Miami Heat was a video guy. He was just a video guy for the Heat and just hung around long enough, learned everything, made the right. Yeah, that story is awesome to me, and he's an amazing coach. Hanging out down there in Miami. I know as a Bills fan, you're probably a big fan of Miami down there, right?
I love going to Miami. I also love when the Bills wind up winning down there, to be honest with you, which is a lot. It's a really fun rivalry. It's actually, and I joke a little bit when I say that because I grew up with real hated Dolphins rivalry, Bills Dolphins. And I always tell the story on my station, Justin, every year when the Bills play the Dolphins, the first game of the year, they play twice. And I always go back to this story and I say, look, I'm in my 50s. I'm going to tell the story about the Bills Dolphins rivalry. And I'm going to give you the short version here. It goes something like this. In the 1950s, really even before that, the Buffalo was this huge booming industry, steel town, and it was before the interstate system and all of that. And the Bethlehem Steel was this huge, massive, steel company in Buffalo, New York. Well, once the interstate system came by and people could bypass Buffalo, you didn't have to go, through the waterways and all of that. It started the industry started trying to change the way everything happened. Well, Buffalo started losing population. Then the steel industry started to decline as well. Well, in the 1970s, Buffalo was basically losing population left and right. Economy was terrible. People couldn't find jobs. And in that same decade, the Miami Dolphins beat the Bills 20 straight times, could not beat them. And then in 1977, there was this huge blizzard called the Blizzard of 77 here in Buffalo. People died. It was horrible. It was the first time that kind of thing was shown on TV on the nightly news. Look at Buffalo, snow, death. And we were looked at really like, who wants to go to Buffalo? Horrible city. And all of that misery was happening while the Dolphins were kicking the Bills' ass, and people kind of associated the Dolphins with everything bad in their life. And that's kind of how the rivalry started from this end.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And just holding that, I mean, it's so easy in sports to hold grudges, especially little ones like that. But the fact that you guys share a division, that makes it probably a little extra easier for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And then Ralph Wilson, the story goes, had a chance at one point years around that time, maybe to a realignment, and he basically said, like, one thing, we have to have the Dolphins in our division. It's too good of a rivalry. So, that stayed, and it's good. And I go down there now, every twice a year, and obviously it's become a little bit more of a rivalry, but the Bills are still winning pretty much regularly against the Miami Dolphins, and Bills fans just overtake the stadium. They just they do everywhere, it seems like, anyway.
Yeah, they
Bills
have
Mafia travels massively. But in that stadium, it becomes very apparent because, let's face it, Miami, there's a lot of other things going on, and people go to other events going on around the city or whatever. And I always say it's kind of more of a front running type of, fan base when it comes to the Dolphins. If they're really good, they'll show up. If not, it's like, I'll sell my ticket to a Bills fan. Who cares?
Yeah, I kind of get that too. But just, I mean, I probably gone to more NBA games. Like I've gone there. I'm a Celtics fan. I don't even want to get into my fanhood. I feel like it's sacrilege to just explain the I don't know. The dynamics of my fandoms is strange because as a kid, my family we were kind of like nomads, right? We were like, they were like moving all over the place. Before I was 10, I was born in Quincy, Massachusetts, right outside of Boston. We moved to
Michigan.
Went
to Syracuse with a very good friend who is from Quincy, but go ahead.
Oh, very, very nice.
Yes.
So and then before I don't remember any of Boston. Before that even happened, we moved to Michigan, which primarily is where my family's from. Everybody's pretty much in Michigan. Then we moved to Tennessee. I remember a little bit of my childhood in Tennessee, Newport, Tennessee, right in the top right corner. And then when I was 10, we moved to Florida. And then that's from there. We grew up from there. I don't have a home city. And I would love to, as much as like hearing your story about how you grew up in Buffalo, left, came back, and now you're doing what you're doing there. It's awesome to me. And I love that. It's inspiring. I don't know where I would plant my flag. Because I am a Packers fan born. I was born into being a Green Bay Packers fan. And I'm happy to be a Green Bay Packers fan.
Wait, you were born into it in Quincy, Massachusetts?
My grandfather,
because your family was
before, yeah, my
okay.
parents, they were already Packers fans. I was just
Okay,
kind of, that was
yeah,
the
I
only one
get
I
it.
was assumed in.
And
Nobody
then
was
you
really.
you got to experience Brett Favre growing up, so that made it
Yes.
better.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Favre into Rodgers
Yeah,
into Love right now. It's still, he's pretty good. I'm excited. It could be much worse.
sure.
We're doing all right. Yeah, I've been very spoiled from that aspect. But I didn't have a basketball team. I love the NBA. I love watching basketball. Celtics just seemed like the move. I mean,
Hmm.
I love the color green, so I'm a Celtics fan. And that alone is just weird to have those two. But I don't really have a baseball team, but I've been to the Rays games more than anything. So I
Hmm.
guess I would plant my flag in for the Rays. I don't know. It's really weird.
Do you
It's hard
follow
to
hockey?
explain. My family's Red Wings. But again, I've been to more Lightning games, and I don't really know how to explain it. I think I
And
can
I
claim.
apologize for not knowing where you went to school. Are you a big college fan?
So my family always, my aunt worked at the University of Michigan. Everybody's
Okay.
from Michigan. That had growing up always kind of been my fandom. But I went to State College of Florida, so they're not
Okay.
exactly like crushing D1 sports right now. So when those manatees rise up, we'll see them when they make it D1. I don't know if they will or not, but that's going to be a long time coming.
Well, I'll tell you, I think it's a great story too, because I always was fascinated by when we lived in Englewood, Florida, that, everybody's from somewhere else. So, you'd go to one place and it's, we, I think where we were at the end zone, the guys who own the end zone were former New York Port Authority police. So they're big Giants fans. They made it a Giants bar.
Mhm.
Right. And then you can go to cross street or somewhere and find a Bills bar, to Port Charlotte or Venice, Bills and Browns and Steelers. But everybody who came in was always from somewhere else. So I always found that interesting. But the Buccaneers were really good when I lived down there. So Bucks had a
Mhm.
huge following. And of course, the Dolphins are a legacy type of franchise. They had a huge following as well. But I was always a Bills guy. In fact, I was known as the Bills guy, at the bar and in school and all of that. And that was pretty cool. And I'm all Buffalo. I always say this, like in Buffalo, we're fans of Buffalo, not necessarily fans of the Bills or Sabres. Yes, we are. But
Yeah.
like if those teams left, yeah, they're dead to you. Like you're not following them. Whereas the Raiders leave Oakland, the Raiders fans are still Raiders fans in Vegas.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know. That's that.
Right.
That's, I'm fortunate. I don't think any of the teams that I like, they've been there for so
Right.
long. I don't think they're going to up and leave. But I don't know how you would navigate that situation. That'd be a weird situation
We
for
have a
sure.
lot. We just have a lot of pride here on who we are
Mhm.
and where we're from. Jerry Glanville had a great quote one time. Former, coach Jerry Glanville left the tickets for Elvis famously all the time, and he was an assistant coach before he was the head coach of the Oilers and all that. He was an assistant coach in the '80s, and he got a job in Buffalo. Anyway, he said Buffalo made his wife cry twice.
Mm.
Once when he told her we have to go to Buffalo. Once when he told her we have to leave Buffalo.
Oh, that's
Because
nice.
that's what kind of city this is. And I'm not kidding you.
Yeah.
Justin, I mean, you got Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Steve Tasker. These people live here. They could go anywhere after their Hall of Fame careers and they could live. They live here because they love it here. And it's a great city. And we have a lot of hockey people. Where I'm sitting, I'm not kidding you, a mile and a half this way is Canada behind me.
Okay.
Like I
Yep.
live that close to Canada. Like you go to the end of my street, you see the Peace Bridge. That's where going over to Canada.
Yeah.
So we're huge into hockey. We love that, but I'm a Buffalo kid through and through. I love all the connections, and I'm proud to tell you, like Carlin Hartman's an associate head coach at Florida. He's going to the Final Four. Carlin's a friend of mine, grew up in Buffalo. Like I love telling you that. Nate Oates coached at UB, so we're going to claim him. University of Buffalo, Alabama head coach. He's a friend of mine. Brian Hodgson just got the head coaching job at the University of South Florida. He's a friend of mine as well, so he's going to be doing that in basketball. Like we're just prideful of who we are, what we have here. We didn't have a basketball team. We had the Braves.
Yeah.
They left and became the Clippers in the 1980s. Okay. San Diego Clippers, now LA Clippers. I wasn't really old enough to remember the Braves. They left when I was very, very young. When I was a kid, there was only like one NBA game on every week, CBS game of the week, maybe it was. And it was basically always the Lakers, the Celtics, the Sixers, or the Hawks.
Mm-hmm.
I became a Lakers fan. I'm a Lakers fan.
Okay.
I'm not diehard. I'm not diehard, nothing like that, but I grew up with the Magic, Kareem, Showtime Lakers. I still follow them. I still like them. I love the fact Luka and LeBron, but I'm not like into it every night. I am like that with the Yankees, though. I'm a big Yankees fan, grew up a Yankees fan, love the Yankees. We go every year. Take my son. He's a huge Yankees fan. He's 11 now. We go to Yankee Stadium every year. We try to go to games. We do that. And then, of course, I went to Syracuse University, and I was a Syracuse basketball fan as a kid before I went to Syracuse. And I'm a massive Syracuse basketball fan. I follow recruiting, everything.
Well, shout out to Carmelo Anthony, Hall of Famer. That's pretty awesome.
And his son, Kion, is starting at Syracuse next year as a freshman. Yes.
Very nice. That's awesome. Legacy lives on there. So I do want to talk about one thing because my wife is from New York. And when I say this, I feel like your New York and her New York are different New Yorks.
What part of New York
Long Island?
From?
Long Island.
Much different. Yeah, that's a different world.
So I've gone out there a couple times. We've hit the city. We've done the tours. We've done the New York City trip every time. She's very detailed. She made a thorough itinerary. We did everything. We did all the tours. I was in the Statue of Liberty's head. It was awesome. Long Island. When I go out there, I'm like, what's the rest of New York like? I feel like they're just totally different people. Like when they talk about outside, basically west or northwest of New York City, that's like they're talking about it like it's Canada. I don't know. It's really weird that how they kind of treat that. Are you seeing that dynamic when you're traveling in New York? Do you see that there's it's two different states?
Listen, first of all, let me explain something. When you hear people sometimes refer to Buffalo as upstate New York, we are not upstate. We are Western New York. Upstate is more like Plattsburgh, even Albany. You're going up the state, right? That's not us. We are Western New York. We are on Lake Erie. Do you know how long it takes to get from Buffalo to Long Island? You want to guess to drive?
7 hours.
About 6 hours.
Oh, okay. All right.
We're pretty far away.
Yeah.
I mean, we're totally different. But yeah, that is a massively different type of New York, and not in a bad way either. We love New York City. I love going to New York, right? Long Island and New York City. I can't speak to the differences between the two. I think you'd have to get your wife or someone to say, well, in New York City, it's like this, and Long Island, it's like this. A lot of times, to me, it's great because we love Brooklyn and Long Island. I'll go out there. My college roommate is now the video scouting director for the Mets. Okay.
Nice.
Cool. I love, so I have friends over there. We love going to New York City. We love doing all of that, but I love Manhattan. I'm a New York City guy. I mean, I love go there. I saw Billy Joel play at MSG one year on a Bills trip down there, and we were playing the Jets, so I love walking around Manhattan, going to Times Square. I'm a city guy. That's what I like. Buffalo is just big enough as a city, but it's just small enough that it is not massively overcrowded and traffic all the time and all of that. The thing about Buffalo that's great is, speaking all this in the city, and I don't mean, I'm not trying to diverge from your
don't
question.
worry, I'm moving now. That's okay. I'm moving to Buffalo. You got it.
Well, the thing about it though, I will tell you why you do get a lot of people too is living here. We are within a half day's drive of almost any major northeastern city. 6 hours in New York City, 7 hours to Philadelphia, 6 hours to Boston, 1.5 hours to Toronto, 3 hours to Cleveland, 4 hours to Pittsburgh, 6 or 7 hours to Cincy. You can go anywhere you want and you'll be there in a half day.
That's awesome. Yeah, and especially coming from Florida, it was a nightmare because it takes 5 hours to just get out of the state where we were at. Oh my God.
Yes, exactly.
And before you can even do anything, before you even have options just to branch out. That was miserable. Again, I don't want to crap on Florida. It's a beautiful state. Obviously, it's great to go down there and hang out. My mom, my dad still live down there. And we go down there pretty frequently, but I do like having the option to go in any direction. It is really, it's kind of freeing to just be like, hey, let's pick a direction. Let's go that way. Let's go here. Instead of just let's just get out of the state. That's a nightmare for sure. Sal, I appreciate you hanging out. I know you got to go here pretty soon, but I wanted to let you know, and obviously you've probably heard this from a lot of people that you have coached or I didn't have the pleasure of under your tutelage of coaching. There was a moment where I actually thought about trying out for the football team, and I never did. I did a lot of that. I feel like I almost
What
tried
sports
out.
Did you play?
I played a lot of basketball. I played a lot of, we did football every once in a while out, just
did you play high school sports?
No, I did. I was on the wrestling team my freshman year.
Oh, okay.
Did that. Wasn't a huge fan. But I never tried out for the basketball team. I never did that, but I played a lot of basketball though. I did that, just all over the place. And I probably should have. I do kind of regret not diving in and actually participating. I feel like I could have played wide receiver pretty well. I feel like I had the hands.
That's what I played. Yeah, that's what I played.
I feel like I could have done that. But
I like that.
No, I just wanted to say, I mean, obviously, what's funny is we were chatting back and forth in Messenger, and you sent me your phone number, and you were just like, shoot me here. It's hard to keep track of the messaging. When I put your phone number in my phone, I realized I had your phone number already in my phone.
I think I realized I had yours too. Yeah.
It's crazy. So what happened is we were talking, I think this was before 2012, maybe 2010 or something like that. You were working at the local radio station in Inglewood. And I think I was trying to figure myself out. I was at the rite of passage everybody goes through when they're working at Publix in Florida. This is kind of like a mandatory thing to figure out where you want to do from there. I decided I wanted to attempt, I loved ESPN. Obviously, that was First Take was like the big thing. Everything was crazy. The sports talk at the time was it was over the top, and that was the goal in my head was like, I want to get into broadcasting. I want to do sports, and that, I mean, everybody's got that goal. I feel like it's a pretty common thing, but I didn't know exactly where to start or where to go. And you were somebody that I leaned on to kind of talk to and chat about. We never linked up at that radio station, but there were times where we were circling a little bit.
Yeah.
But shortly after that, I did get a gig at Clear Channel at the time in Sarasota. I started as a part-time programmer up there, working at that cluster of stations. And then I don't think you would know my little path there, but it when I see and hear about your path and how long it took you to get to where you were, I kind of see a lot of where I'm at in my life. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk to you, and we'll talk more about this later, but it's definitely, I don't want to, it's, you're a role model for me, just seeing your path. And if anybody wants to know about your path, there's a lot of podcasts you can check out on YouTube of just kind of hearing your story and how you came from Buffalo down to Florida and that story of you working your way back up to Buffalo and grinding it out is an awesome story.
Can I ask, how old are you now?
34, I think, right now.
Yeah, well, I'll put it in perspective for you, okay? Yeah. I was 37 years old when I made the really, really scary as all heck decision to leave my full-time teaching, coaching job, having summers off, golfing twice a week, to move to Buffalo, New York, to start over part-time in radio.
Yeah, and that's inspiring for me, right? Because I don't know. I worked in radio for almost 9 years, right? So I was in it. I wound up getting full-time as a programmer. I wound up pretty quickly after that being a part of the morning show. I don't know if you remember the radio station 107.9 WSRZ. It was a classic hit station.
Yeah, sure.
I worked on the morning show, Jones and Crane at the time. I was their producer forever, all the way up until 2020. And then there were obviously mass layoffs at the time. That was crazy. And then I guess I haven't really thought about going back into radio because I don't know what that would look like at this time or what I want to do. My passion did kind of change at the time because there wasn't a sports station and I wanted to talk sports, but there was no outlet for me to talk sports. So I jumped into podcasting. So ever since like 2017, I've always had like a burner in the fire of like me making content. Like I created something called The Chunk that I wanted to kind of mirror off like the Ringers network of pop culture, sports, movies. And then I've spun into a thing I think you're aware of. I shot it your way. You put a review on it, but the movie Propcast was something that we're still doing. Right. So I'm always trying to create something. And your story, I'm not sure where I want to be, but I think I'm close. And if I had to relate my timeline to kind of what your timeline is, I think I'm in Buffalo right now. I think I'm in Buffalo. I'm not at the position in Buffalo I want to be at. I think that's where I'm at. And I think that will only mean something to you. So people who are listening are like, what are you talking about? You'll have to know the full story of Sal Capaccio, but maybe we can get into that a little bit in the future.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I go and do a lot of, I do a lot of talks to kids, in college or high school about my job because it's a cool job and it's awesome. And I go and I talk and, I tell them about my job, which is great, but I really get a lot more into like the personal side of that, which is getting here and what my story was like and never losing your faith or your belief in yourself and betting on yourself. But I have a very, very unique way. Like I went to Syracuse, but I didn't just climb job until you got up to where you were. Like I left the business. I was doing nothing in this business for 10 years and it almost cost me because when I wanted to come back to Buffalo, they literally said, you're doing nothing in radio right now. Why would we hire you?
Yeah.
And then I think this, but I was the first person in the country to report that Terrell Owens was signing with the Bills. And that kind of broke everything wide open for me. So I happened to know somebody who told me and I took a chance and I threw it out there. And that's when Buffalo's like, oh, you might know something, but they really liked me in radio, but they didn't really have a spot for me. And anyway, and then years later, I decided, okay, they said, if you want to move up here, like we have a job for you and you can, we don't have a full-time job for you, but you can start part-time. And I did. But anyway, when I talk to these kids, what I say is, listen, one piece of advice I give everybody in this business now, when you're getting in, when I was young, Justin, like I got the newspaper every day and I read the newspaper, the sports guys that I would read. People are now friends of mine that are, retired writers or currently still writing. Or I turned on the TV and I saw the nightly news, or I turned on the radio and listened. They were all different people who did it, right? It's not the case anymore. We're all doing this all together. You have to be able to do everything now in this business. You got to be able to talk into a mic. You got to be able to turn on a computer. You look into a camera. You got to be able to write. Writing is very important. I have to write for my website.
Yeah.
Little secret. I hate it. I hate the fact, but I have to do it. It's part of my job. So I tell everybody, if you want to get in this business, like, you got to be able to do everything. You don't have to be great at everything, but you got to be able and willing to do it. Otherwise, nobody's hiring you.
Yeah. And I've experienced that as well. And that's one thing towards the end of my radio career was I was like, I really love podcasting. I really love creating things. We were doing, I mean, it's radio, but we were a cheesy radio station. So we were doing a lot of social media videos, a lot of content like that. My skill set is very broad, and that's kind of what made me appealing. I've worked at a couple startups that are just basically like, I was their entire marketing team, content team, social media team. Like I've done that, and it's a lot of work. And I understand that my skill set is that. I've kind of stepped back from that, and I'm now at a company now that I feel like I'm in the right spot. It's the right company. It's right where I want to be. I just want to get to using all my skill sets for this place. I think once those align, I think I'm right there.
It's easy to say to somebody, go. You know, I'll tell people, what's the best advice? I'll tell them that, and I'll say, look, there's so many platforms. You can go create your own stuff now. Go put your stuff out there. Go do a podcast, do a YouTube show. The problem is you can't make a living doing that. Just,
right.
Like that. That's obviously the issue, right? Like, I was fortunate enough when I came up here. Look, and you have to be able to hustle. When I first got back to Buffalo, 2011, when I left Florida, like I said, I'm in a full-time. I could have stayed teaching for 25 more years and then retired off into the sunset, playing golf twice a week. I had no issue financially. We were great. Me and my wife, she had a full-time job. I had one. We had no kids, living the life, traveling all the time, right? When I got up here, it's like, okay, I'm starting over part-time on radio, fill-in positions. How am I going to make money? I'm not making money in radio. I'm just getting a few dollars to work part-time. I said, well, what else do I do? I can bartend. I've been a server, a bartender. I've been a teacher. I was a substitute teacher for the first 3 years back up here, making $100 a day, going to schools and just being a substitute. Like, that's how I made money. It's the only thing I could do. I mean, I made nothing in radio. I just did radio. It was my passion. I'm trying to get into it. And then as luck would have it, and great timing, we acquired the rights to the Bills about a year after I got there. And that's how kind of I got back in the door of doing some Bills stuff, and, ultimately where I am now.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it's, like I said, it's seeing that path and knowing that, you were my teacher back in the day. And I wish at the time I knew what your goals were, because I don't know I was a high school student. I didn't know exactly what I wanted, but I did 4 years of TV production. In my mind, I said, TV and film's where I want to be. I want to go there. I want to work for a film industry. I want to work for ESPN on TV. And then I wound up in radio, and I was like, radio's kind of awesome. I was like, I kind of like just being able to yap about whatever you want and sit behind a mic and do whatever. That's kind of why when podcasting started rolling out, and you were, I think, one of the first back in the day rolling out making that content. When I was watching that, I was like, that's what I want to do. I started doing it in 2010, I think, on blogtalkradio.com.
Love it.
I was like, I sat in the lanai of my parents' house and was just talking like divisional breakdowns of the NFL. And I was just yapping about whatever. And I remember it. My parents were like, my dad was like tearing up. He was like, this is awesome. Like, this is, and all I was doing was just sitting there talking into the void. And that was where it started. And I've just, ever since, I've been trying to build it. The one thing that I think regret the most is I wasn't consistent through. Like, if I started something back then and my ideas weren't exactly clear, but if I started something back then and held it through now, imagining what that could look like is definitely something. But when I got my foot in the door in radio, even as a part-time person, I dropped everything. I was like, this is it. I'm going to do anything for anybody in this building. And that's what I did. I just kind of grinded my way to the top. And when I realized I hit the peak of that building, because there was no sports outlet, I just started. Then I came back to podcasting, to, making stuff online. And I wish I had those years of consistent output to just kind of like go back to and be like, here's
what year did you graduate high school?
2008. Yeah.
Okay. You didn't. Okay. So a little before, you don't remember. Do you remember Chris Scott, who was a running back?
On the I remember him. Yeah.
So Chris was a running back for us. And then he walked on at the University of Florida. He won a national championship with Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
Randomly. It's just a funny story I wanted to share with you. I remember thinking about when you were in high school, and that's why. So randomly, one day I get a message about 2 years ago here from a girl who says, "Hi, I'm a really big Bills fan. My husband said you were his teacher and coach." I'm like, "What?" And it was Natalie Scott, her name is. And she said, "I'm from Rochester and I met Chris in Florida going to the University of Florida, and they're married. And this girl, Natalie Scott, Chris Scott's wife, was a world-class sprinter who got a scholarship to go to Florida
Wow.
to run.
Wow.
And she was a track athlete and she met Chris. So now they came up last year, 2 years ago.
That's awesome.
And we hung out. Look at that. That's the fan, both of us, all of us.
Yeah, that's awesome,
right?
Man.
And anyway, it's just so funny. Like you're talking about where you were, where you are. I'm like, look, man, like this space we're all living in, like all these connections you make. That's what this is about. And you connecting with me connecting with Chris and reconnecting and all of that. Like that's how you do this too. Like, and you're a go-getter. You've got a great personality. And that's, why you're doing and all these things you're doing. There's nothing wrong with that. Yes, you're right about if you stay in that space, but you also wouldn't have these experiences that you're gaining from doing these other things. I always say this, Justin, like detouring out of radio for 10 years hurt my career, but holy cow, it is the greatest thing I ever did to coach high school football in the state of Florida for the job I do now. Because to learn really from cause that's high level, it's not like high school here in Buffalo, right? Or a lot of other places in the country. I mean, it's pressure and it's a lot of great athletes. And I learn how practices should be set up and run and what it's like dealing with an administration and a coaching staff and like that. Yes, it's not the NFL, but I got a very good education in that side of football that I didn't know as just an athlete growing up, if that makes sense, right? So
100%.
That really helped me too. My thing was mysportsradio.com. That was my first one.
Okay.
MySportsRadio. They're defunct now. And you're right about radio. People say to me all the time. Now I do some shows here on TV. I'm on the local CBS affiliate. I do the, Bills pregame show with them and all that. People say to me all the time, why don't you just go into TV and be on TV? Like you could do like sports on, channel 2 or 4 or 7. I'm like, because I don't want to read a teleprompter for 2 minutes a night. That's not me. I turn on a mic and I talk for 2 hours. That's what I do.
Yeah. It's 100% a different feeling. I never thought I'd be in radio. When I got in there, I was like, it is kind of fun to just, granted, I wasn't talking sports, but having an opinion on anything is fun just to be able to chime in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I did kind of work my way up. I was a producer. I wound up getting the on-air promotion. So I was on air for a morning show for a few years. And I don't know if I want to, I don't know what the goal is, but I know I want to just create really good content in the sports realm. And I don't care where it is. I'll behind the camera, in front of the camera, whatever. Down the line, maybe I'll have my own show. That's the goal. That'd be awesome. But I could pretty much do anything. And that's the goal, is to just be a part of something awesome and see where that takes me from there. But I think that's pretty much the end goal. There was a brief moment where I worked for a startup before this. It wasn't sports related. And I think I sent you a clip of somebody I was talking to who knew of you, who's actually from Buffalo. I sent you a clip in Messenger where I told him you were my teacher. And he was like, no way, get out of here. He was like really kind of like taken aback because he knows you and he just loves listening to you on the radio, which is crazy that came full circle there. But there was a brief moment where I was being paid to have conversations like this.
Yeah.
I want to chase that, but I want to chase it in the realm where I want to be. And I think that I'm circling it. I'm getting close. And when that happens, I think that's going to be the end goal.
Anything I can do to help you out, you let me know. And I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, you never know. I hear from people all around the world really about listening to, because again, Buffalo and the Bills and there's fans everywhere. And I hear from people all the time, you're my connection to Buffalo. And I listen all the time and I watch your shows and your podcasts. And, now we have this global reach with these podcasts and everything. Now, like our station just started doing the YouTube thing. It's taken us a little while, but we're finally there. Yeah. And we have so many Canadian listeners because the Sabres especially, but the Bills too. And our company, our app, our Odyssey app, for years was in Canada, and then they shut it down years ago. And we lost so many listeners through the app because they can't get it on the dial, right? Well, now I'm like, we're back in Canada on YouTube. And I'm telling everybody, and we're getting all these Canadian listeners back, and everybody, there's all these different ways to kind of watch and listen. I don't want to say too much, but I was standing next to Sean McDermott the other day down at the NFL owners meetings, and we were not right at the hotel part. And a guy drives by and he goes, Sal, I'm in West Palm, Florida, Palm Beach, Florida. Sal, I'm like, hey, what's up? What are you doing down here? I'm like, and he looked and he goes, oh, hey, coach. And it was so funny because the guy we were with, another Bills employee, is like, that was amazing. They're like, Sal. Oh, hi, Coach McDermott.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, like especially when you're listening to somebody, and I've listened to a lot of people, a lot of sports radio growing up as well. What do you say to the head coach? I mean, you just say hi, but to you, it's like that's the best part about radio is like they know you. Like, you know what I mean? Like they've heard you say everything about everything. That's freaking Sal Capaccio. I want to talk to you.
We spend hours with each other every day. People are
Yeah.
listeners. We call them P1 listeners, right?
Yep.
You're a P1, you know that. And people, they drive in their cars. They're driving a truck every day and they listen for hours. You develop a relationship. One of the criticisms that I'll get sometimes from people, listeners, because people like you or don't like you, whatever.
Yeah.
One of the criticisms I get is, man, you talk about personal stuff too much. You talk about your family too much. But the majority of people will say, "Oh my God, I love that story you told about your son. I can totally relate." Because you're developing a relationship with your listener. I tell a story about something that happened. Oh my God, Max went to school. I got a call. This happened. I had to go to school. I had to do, and people are like, "Oh my God, that happened to me and my kid." Oh my, these things people relate to, and it's part, and they feel like they're a part of your family and your life, and you're bringing that to them every day. And that's why, to me, the difference between from going back to what we talked about, doing radio and TV or anything like that. Radio is a passionate relationship between two people. I don't mean to say that in a weird way, but that's what it is. It's a passionate, understanding relationship. And you don't have to like me or not like me, but you're listening because you're relating to the things that I'm telling you. I always say, what is the most important thing for me to do during a radio show? What's the most important trait for me to have? And people will say like, oh, you got to be knowledgeable about your sport. Oh, you got to know stats. I'm like, no, I just have to be entertaining.
Yeah.
I just don't want people to turn off the station. I got to tell them something to keep them listening.
Yeah, I mean, you can only talk about one breaking news story for so long before people want to know you're a human being, right? I think at the end of the day, and if you can relate to that, that's perfect. I think that's awesome. But all right, so I'm gonna let you go. I appreciate you taking the time.
Wait, you never answered me. I asked you, what is that helmet you
did? Yeah, sorry, my bad. That's all happened before. This helmet in the background. This is an insane story, and I don't know if we have the time for this, but this was maybe around the same time you moved up, I think around 2011, 2012. I found this helmet in a Goodwill, right? I saw it. I'm a Packers fan. The G's gone. The G was off of it. It's got the stripe. Maybe I'll just roll back and grab it. Hold on.
It looks like a Browns helmet from here with the colors, though.
Here, yeah. Sorry, it's the lighting, right? Okay. I gave you the Buffalo Bills lighting in the back here. That's no expense. You're welcome. So I found this helmet. It was beat up, markers all over it, like sparkles. It looked like garbage, but I was like, that's a Packers helmet. I'm like almost positive that's a Packers helmet. I picked it up. I looked inside and I saw where's the camera here? Am I getting this right? Yeah. I saw the number. There's a number in here, 37. I was like, that's insane. I looked at the back of the sticker. Look at the sticker on the back.
It's a Hall of Fame? No. Oh, Super Bowl.
Super Bowl 32. So the Broncos Packers Super Bowl. I peeled it back. NFL playoffs, Rydell. It's a legitimately game-used Super Bowl helmet from the Broncos Packers Super Bowl. We lost that one, sadly. I wish it was from the year before when we beat the Patriots. But Tyrone Williams, cornerback from Nebraska.
I love it.
I found this helmet. I looked it up. I was like, this is insane. $4. I walked up to the counter. I thought I was stealing it. They didn't know what it was. They just saw it was sporting equipment. I reached out to him on Twitter at the time. This is pretty early Twitter. And he was like, no, that's not mine. And I was like, are you sure? Because I'm like, dude, it's got the stickers. I sent him the pictures. And he's like, oh, no, man. That my ex-wife must have let the kids play with it and donate it. Like, they just
Did
donate.
You ask if he wanted it back?
I did. I asked him if he wanted it back. I was like, I can get this back to you. I think he was in Bradenton at the time. I'm not sure where he's at. He's another person. I still have his phone number. We never linked up. But he was like, I don't need it back, dude. I'll sign it for you if we get together. But we never linked up. And that's a loose end that at some point in my life, I'm going to reach back out. But yeah, to be a Packers fan and find this Venice Island Goodwill.
Wow.
Insane.
I'll be down in Venice next week. My mother-in-law still lives there. We're going.
Nice. Well, you should meet up with my mom down there. She's in Venice.
South Venice. You go. There you go. Then we're going to go see the Sabres and Lightning in Tampa too. Anyway, I saw that. It looked like it was a Browns helmet, so I grabbed this.
Oh no.
This is a Syracuse helmet, but look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, but pretty close. Yeah,
I didn't look at that.
So he gave me the contact to get the G's back. I almost don't want to do it. But yeah, that looks like a Browns helmet. Yeah.
I know it's Syracuse, right? I know.
Slightly offended when you called it a Browns helmet earlier, and I bit.
Well, I couldn't tell from the.
Yeah, no worries. Anyway. The lighting was weird for sure. But Sal, I appreciate you taking the time again, man, and I hope we can link up again in the future and do it again.
For sure, man. Just reach out anytime. Happy to help.